for our 5 speakers here. So I'd like to conclude this conversation with your thoughts and your experience on what has been the most decisive shift to unlock all this, to make sure that sustainability delivers that value.
So maybe I'll go back to what Ibrahim said. It's all in the numbers for many of us engineers in the room. And if you look at the entire energy system from production all the way to use, do you know we only use about less than 1/3 of the primary energy we produce? The rest of it is wasted, either as emissions or as burnt fuel that doesn't do anything. So that other 2/3, so every 3 molecules, you have to make 3 molecules for every 1 you use. 2 molecules are wasted, but they also produce carbon dioxide or methane, right? So think about just the potential that we have in terms of not just emissions reduction, but profitability if we are the most efficient operations in the planet.
Thank you for that, Pratima. Thank you very much. Constance.
I think it's being able to move ESG from being a silo, something which was about advocacy disclosure, to make it really an integrated part of the business line, making sure that business managers understand ESG can be a source of cost cutting, to your point on efficiency, a source of revenue. And the minute we were able to really embed it into the business line, it's really, it's changed quite a lot dramatically, the way people handle it. So.
Thank you, Constance. Guido.
Yeah, so I just want to first echo on what Pratima said on the better use of the energy. So this was one of the elements which we realized during the energy transition, that we waste a lot of energy. So we need to better use the energy for the production of the hydrocarbons. We also need to reduce methane emissions and capture as much as possible the produced CO2. One additional element I wanna add to the conversation is we don't talk too much about the base load, and the base load today for the power generation is essentially gas, coal, and nuclear. So today we focus a lot on many fossil fuels, which are of course polluting, but with some mitigations you can reduce the pollution, but we don't focus too much on coal. Just a data point for all of us and for the audience. In 2024, the total CO2 emission in the world was 37.4 gigatons, of which 40% is due to the power generation, which makes 15 gigatons. Of this 15 gigatons, 73% is produced by coal, which accounts only for 30% of the power generation. So if today we would replace coal with gas, we would reduce this 11 to 5. So basically reducing the 37 to 30 almost.
So there again,
phenomenal reduction. And this without mitigations, without CO2, without capture of the CO2 for the gas-fired power turbines. So I just want to put this as a food for thought and as an argument of reflection for the audience and for all of us.
Sure, very valid point here. Ibrahim.
I think I'll be very brief, but this reflection is so important. We should move from compliance to systems outcomes. And systems outcomes, you talk about efficiency. Let's revisit the grid, base load. Let's create investments. And I would like to add something. You said planet and people. I would say we can do well by doing good. It doesn't harm to help planet, profit, and people. I will add another P for it. So we can do well by doing good. Planet, profit, people. That's the best formula. Compliance to system outcome.
Fair enough. Alexandre?
You're so right. So good intentions don't change the world. Numbers, actions, that's what we see. And if you cannot only say good things, and you need to walk the talk. Absolutely. I think that's what we see. And I agree with you. We need the P, we need the last P, the profit. We need to show it's doable, and we are trying hard, but we're doing it.
Absolutely, for sure you are. Many thanks to all of you for a great conversation here. You have clearly made the point that sustainability can be a driver of value. Thank you so much.
Well done, well said.
Thank you.
Guido, thank you.
Next, we live in an era of volatility, of course. Well, that's what dominates headlines anyway these days. Resilience, though, is built over decades. So our next panel explores how long-term investors are shaping the infrastructure, industries, and systems strong enough to cope with uncertainty in the long term. A conversation moderated by Nadia Boumeziut, who's head of sustainability and information governance at Zurich Insurance. Thank you. Nadia, over to you and your wonderful guests.
Good afternoon. This is a really important topic, and I think we all know that we need a long-term lens. So we all know markets are volatile, geopolitics fragmented, and climate risk increasingly material. Yet resilience requires patient, long capital. What has fundamentally changed in how serious investors think about long-term risk and returns today? Your Excellency, what's your perspective?
Thank you for asking, and good afternoon, and hopefully better New Year for everybody. In my view, the one single trend and issue which is defining long-term development is the energy transformation, related, of course, to climate change. Despite the denials in some even important jurisdictions, climate change is a reality, and in my view, the large majority of governments and investor communities have realized this, and this is going to be the defining feature, defining trend in our time. And I might add one point, which is that in some countries, like in Europe, in Northern Europe, we have already seen a very significant turning point in a sense that the setting of market price in the electricity market, like in the Nordic electricity market, is no more fossil fuels, it is wind power. In Finland, my native country, for instance, over 90% of electricity is produced by fossil-free fuels, 40% nuclear, over 50% renewables. And this is one reason why we have relatively inexpensive electricity, and one reason why Finland is an attractive destination for data center investments. So it's the energy transformation that is defining our time.
Thank you. I hope that's on. All right. Sarah, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah, adding to that, I would say there's been this big shift in the last year and a half of, particularly on long-term investors, on realizing the importance of national security issues that may not have made pure financial sense in the short term, but these long-term national security goals that will pressure and put pressure towards things that will lead to returns, but also are affecting the strategies in ways that they didn't in previous years. And this is really acute in North America and Europe, I would say. I think this region is much more aware of those things, but it's very much shifted in North America and Europe. The other piece is that on a long-term basis, particularly for investors with 10-year beyond horizons, they're starting to integrate what does physical risk of climate look like and how to think about it. And they're trying to think about not only how will it change consumer behavior? How will it change the pricing of assets? But also, when is that going to happen? Is that going to happen 10 or 20 years from now? Is that going to happen when science evolves and we learn new things in the next decade? Or is it going to happen in the next couple of years because of what's happening in insurance markets? And so there's this thinking through what does the world look like, and then when do people and the markets respond to it that is taking place?
So, Hui Fong, from an Asian perspective, long-term risk and returns, what do you see in this area?
Thanks, Nadia. Against today's backdrop of volatility and fragmentation, I believe investors have fundamentally changed how they view long-term risk. Environmental, social, geopolitical factors that were used to be viewed as externalities, they're now widely considered and recognized as core and material drivers for long-term risk and return. And investors are increasingly focused on how climate risks affect the asset valuation over time, alongside a growing recognition that social cohesion, stable governance, these are also prerequisites for sustainable returns. And in this context, I do believe the multilateral development banks like the AIIB are positioned uniquely to play a crucial role. The MDBs can connect geographies and economies and bridge the financing gap, and they do it by de-risking projects and setting credible investment standards. The MDBs can also lead by example in their own climate finance. They make sure their own portfolios are aligned with low carbon development pathway, and then they can help mainstream this approach across the financial system. So we are talking working as a system together. MDBs can attract and mobilize private investments and making them a very important enabler of resilience in an increasingly volatile global environment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sangyo, from your perspective,
yeah,
you know, looking at long-term horizons, risk, returns.
Yeah, still many people regard climate crisis as a long-term risk. It is. But if you look at the other side, it is coming to us as adjusted returns. Let me quote two reports, one by IEA, International Energy Agency, and Patty Birol, who is the head of the IEA, is telling me that last year the world invested more than $2 trillion in green energy and climate tech, while the investment on fossil fuel remains $1 trillion. 10 years ago, $1 trillion. Last year, $1 trillion. But 10 years ago, the investment on green energy was $1 trillion. Last year, more than doubled. And he says the green investment contributed at least 10% of global economic growth. So it is coming to us as adjustable returns. And recent report by the Boston Consulting Group, along with the World Economic Forum, the so-called global green economy is now more than $5 trillion. And it would surpass 7 trillion by 2030. So no matter what is happening in the geopolitical stage, green economy is growing. And lastly, our organization, GGGI, Global Green Growth Institute, demonstrate more than 10% growth last year, despite all these things. So it is coming to us as returns. That's the point I like to make.
That's a very optimistic view and approach. I like that. So clearly substantial movement towards that.
Okay.
When we look at pricing systemic risks, how are interest rates and macroeconomic tools adapting to climate and transition risks? And which risks remain inadequately priced into the financial system? And what concerns you most for long-term stability?
Thank you. 2 points on that. First, there is clearly a mispricing of climate risk in the markets in our system, and that's why the leading economists of the world, over 3,000 some years back, including around 20 7, I think, Nobel laureates called for a global carbon tax, which would be, from the economics point of view, the first best, most effective and efficient way forward. But as that is not possible in our messy real world, therefore we lean on and we count on binding international agreements like COP agreements, and in the case of Europe, the emission trading scheme, ETS, which is serving the same purpose as global carbon tax in the European context. In addition to that, both the European Central Bank and the European Investment Bank and other financial institutions in Europe are directing their work towards green transition and related technologies and investments. For instance, the Eurosystem and the European Central Bank, I'm sitting in the ECB Governing Council, we are the largest owner of green bonds in Europe. Second point concerning long-term stability, price stability is of paramount importance, and what matters for price stability is central bank independence. To my regret, central bank independence is under threat now in the United States, and that's why yesterday a large number of international central bankers called for underlining the importance of central bank independence and defended in full solidarity Chair Jerome Powell of the Federal Reserve, underlining the fact that central bank independence is crucial for price stability, financial stability, economic stability, and thus it is essential for sustainable growth in the global context. These are, in my view, the current major challenges for long-term financial and economic stability.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing this. If we move towards climate risk and financial risk, where does scientific uncertainty no longer justify inaction? And where are investors most exposed if they delay decisions today?
Yeah, so based on the science, we now have enough climate change has now happened that fundamentally the statistics of what we're experiencing, the extreme weather events, the chronic changes, they're now fundamentally different than they were in the past. However, society, unless there's been adaptation, was built for a climate that no longer exists. And so where it's making companies start to respond and investors start to respond is when those changes are now starting to have financial impact. The first place that we're starting to see that really is happening in the insurance markets. We're starting to see the repricing due to past events of being larger and larger magnitude in terms of the events and the event frequency and now the financial costs. The other place where that's starting to happen is in credit markets, and it's in regions either where you have extreme risk, so it's parts of the world where you have wildfire risk, where you've now had the 10 worst wildfires in the last 5 years, or where you're having flooding events due to sea level rise in certain zones, or it's in locations where there isn't a capacity for adaptation, where the changes are happening rapidly and there isn't a way to respond, so you know the damages are also rising. And so you're starting to see that in certain corners of the world, certain types of industries that have these exposures that they can adapt rapidly. And so as that's starting to go into different sectors, different regions of the world, investors are now also starting to realize that they need to start planning for this. As our boards, I spend a lot of my time with boards talking about what their climate strategies need to be. And the big questions are, we know what the future looks like due to climate. There's some uncertainty, but we know directionally what's happening. We know the magnitudes of some things, and we need to plan for that. We need to start thinking about where do we want to be and what do we need to start planning and spending money for so we can deal with those problems in the future. But the big question always is, when does it start getting priced into markets, into financial capacity for financing, for insurance and everything else? Because that's when the movement in terms of companies and investors will really start to shift. And so it's this big question of, we know what's coming, we know that there might be pricing gaps, but we don't know when. And that's a human behavior question that I think that everyone in this room needs to have an opinion on as they plan for the future.
But the science is there, so...
The science is there.
Yeah.
We know, and it's one of the few things where we actually know what the future looks like.
Okay.
Nothing else in
Yeah,
markets.
yeah. Makes sense, yeah.
In science, we trust.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a fuzzy crystal ball, but it's still a crystal ball.
Yeah. So, from an MDB perspective, mobilizing capital at scale needs to happen, right? So, what structures are most effective to crowd in private capital? Because that's what's needed in the long term, right? And then for resilient infrastructure, and where does public capital still need to lead? Because there are still some areas where I think public capital is still taking the lead.
Thank you, Nadia. This is an important question because private capital mobilization is central to AIIB. We all know the infrastructure financing gap cannot be closed by public balance sheets alone. And there are major opportunities in attracting private investment to bridge the gaps. And in fact, today we know the private financing is still predominantly provided by banking sectors, with the large institutional investor pools remain untapped. So in AIIB, we set a corporate strategy of, with a clear ambition to reach 50% of private sector financing, including direct private capital mobilization by 2030. And it delivers this through a balanced model that spans both sovereign and private operations. And this combination, in fact, allows public capital to reduce risk upfront and public capital to scale solutions when projects become bankable. In terms of private capital mobilization, AIB delivers this both directly. Direct mobilization happens at project level, where we use loans, guarantees, co-financing to crowd in private investments because of the direct and active involvement of AIIB. On the other hand, indirect mobilization is happened through capital markets and financial intermediaries that help to expand the pool of investable infrastructure assets for institutional investors. Let me give you two real examples. In direct mobilization, AIB extended a guarantee of 200 million for Turk Exim Bank's green lending program, enabling the bank to extend long-term financing for climate-aligned investments at a time of heightened market volatility. And by this targeted credit enhancement, AIB helped unlock private bank liquidity, extend maturities, and lower financing costs. And this demonstrates how public capital can unlock private investments even under challenging market conditions. The second example I want to give is about indirect mobilization, and this is illustrated by Project Merlion in Singapore, where we partner with Bayfront Infrastructure Management to create a platform of investable infrastructure securities. And this platform refinances operational and cash-generating infrastructure assets, turning mature bank loans into investable, standardized securities. And this project helps free up bank balance sheets and crowd in institutional investors, long-term investors, and they help recycle capital into new, resilient infrastructure projects. So in essence, the ability to move from project anchoring to market building, I think is central to our catalytic role, and also to scaling private investments in climate resilient projects.
Yeah, I think we need more private capital to flow there as well. Yeah,
right.
Very good. It's good to know. Looking at policymaking, Sang-Yup, how can policymaking in emerging markets shape resilient investments to drive competitiveness and growth amid uncertainty, as we know, rather than being perceived as a cost or constraint? What future directions should governments prioritize to attract capital?
That is really wonderful question. Well, to boost up a long-term resilience investment and to encourage so-called patient capital, work for the transition we need to have. Investors need to be ensured about predictability and calculability. And that's the role of government, to ensure that kind of the predictability and calculability. And for that, we need to redefine the notion of the game we are playing. It's not just about environmental policy. It is about finance policy to make things be materialized. So in some, it should be a national top priority, comprehensive, holistic strategy. That's what we need. And that's how we are working together with our member countries over the 50 countries around the world. Korea tried to have a new concept of climate policy under the name of green growth that was proclaimed in 2008. And China has been adopting green development policy since 2012 after President Xi Jinping took the power. It is all about industrial competitiveness. And that's how you invest money from investors. And that's what emerging countries need to have. That's how you encourage long-term investment in a much more workable. So we obviously need to enhance our climate ambition, but that could be alive when it could be translated into national strategy for new competitiveness. Europe is missing that part, to my eye. Europe has led the way for so many years. I admire those leaderships, but not just for regulation, but for investment. That's what we need to see in the world.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. I would love to continue this conversation. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you all for your contributions. They were very insightful, and we'll clear the stage for the next panel. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia.
Many thanks to you, Nadia, for your exceptional moderation, and to our speakers and their great insights on how to invest in resilience. So we are now going to turn even more attention to energy infrastructure and how you can build it and how you can innovate too to do so. We are moving indeed from strategy to solutions now, with a series of quick-fire talks showcasing innovators translating bold ideas into deployable infrastructure. Fast, focused, and practical. So we're going to start by welcoming Sarah Fleischer, who's co-founder and CEO at Tozero. And Sarah told me backstage that she used to work in space, but she has decided to turn her attention to real-life solutions here on Earth, and we thank her for that. And her talk will be followed by a talk by Alison Drink, who's CEO and co-founder at Made of Air, and Ayush Misra, who is CEO at Ampere Hour Energy. So please join me in welcoming our innovators for a series of quick-fire talks. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's not a secret that we are in the era of electrification. We all know that we need to hit our net zero targets, and especially here in this region, in GCC region, we're doing the right thing, deploying battery energy storage systems. In the next decade or so, we will see a deployment of a threefold of batteries worldwide, not just for electrical vehicles, but especially for battery energy storage systems moving forward. I would like to talk a little bit about how do you even get to the batteries? So if we talk about the value chain of batteries, you start in Latin America, you go to Australia, or even China, you mine the critical raw materials. Here in this picture, you see the white gold, the lithium being mined out of the ground, processed, transported to China, building all the batteries and deploying it worldwide. Not just for the electrical vehicles, but especially for our renewable energies, storage of the energy, and so on and so forth. Now, what a lot of people do not talk about, by 2030 onwards, we will not have these critical raw materials matching the demand. We will have a 50% of shortage of critical raw materials. We want the batteries, we don't have enough of the critical raw materials worldwide from the mines. So this is a chance for us to really find an alternative source of these critical raw materials by using urban mining, which is, let's get all the batteries that we have been using all the years in the past and recycle them. This is what we do at 2.0. We take battery waste, recycle them through our chemical process, and specifically extract lithium and graphite, the two major critical raw materials that we don't really have outside of China's control, here locally. The beautiful thing, where does the technology come from? Novel innovation by my co-founder, Dr. Ksenia Milicevic-Neumann, which is also published on Nature. And we managed at our company to extract that lithium, and we're the very first in Europe to bring critical raw materials to our customers. The best of all, it can be cheaper. Not just cheaper, 2 times cheaper than any mine in the world, just because of battery recycling. We are 3 years old. This is how it started. This is my co-founder. We started in the lab based on 25 years of research at RWTH Aachen. It's like the MIT of Germany. And we scaled it out of the lab to industrial scale, 25,000 times of scale-up of the technology, and it works, which is fantastic. So you can see here the chancellor holding the first recycled lithium, the former chancellor of Germany, holding the first recycled lithium in Europe, which we produced, which was a fantastic moment for us. But also we have great backers. Honda invested in us. You have one of the largest engineering companies in the world from Japan, like JGC, that has been building oil and plants here in the Middle East, backing us, ready to really build the first plants around the world. This is where we are at now. We built our demo plant out of Munich. We're a German company. Once this is running, this is our chemical plant area where we're based at the moment. We see ourselves really setting up these recycling plants worldwide to break the chain of dependencies of these critical raw materials. So we are 30, 40 stellar engineers, a young dynamic team, and we're just getting excited for a new journey to really bring abundance to these critical raw materials. This is us, 2.0, miners of tomorrow, and I'm looking for partners to really join us on this mission. Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Alison Dring. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Made of Air. At Made of Air, I believe that buildings are where we should be storing carbon. Unfortunately, right now, the opposite is true. Most of the emissions in the built environment are derived from materials that are mined or extracted from our ground. So we're talking about concrete, steel, aluminum, plastics. They contribute to 40% of global emissions derived in the built environment. These materials have high emissions, so we're extracting carbon and we're pumping it into the air in the form of CO2. And they've benefited from hundreds of years of fossil economy efficiency. And so therefore, we're using them in everything. Every building tells a story about carbon. Imagine if that story were different. What if instead of mining our materials from below ground, we were mining them from the air? What if we were using materials that grow and capture CO2? Biogenic materials like wood products could cut emissions in buildings by half. But there's a problem with biogenic materials. They struggle to meet the performance standards in buildings like fire, durability, and weathering. These materials are so important, and yet they can't be put to use. And so, we continue to use fossil and mined materials in buildings. And this is where Made of Air comes in. We've invented a technology that can lock atmospheric CO2 into material composites permanently. So we start with wood waste, and we convert it into biochar via pyrolysis. Our technology then takes biochar into material composites, and these material composites lock all that atmospheric CO2 into a high-performing material that can enter building products and store carbon for decades. We're putting that material technology to use in a facade product. This is called Sequoia. Sequoia is a cladding panel that's 100% bio-based. It has outstanding fire properties, high thermal stability. We've reached Euro Class B in fire. We have a variety of surface finishes. We can achieve any color and texture. And we're also super cost efficient to make. So this is a material that we can press into panels. Cost efficiency is important to us. And it means that we can offer the product at market product parity. And it also means no green premium. So when you compare what's out there in the building market right now with Sequoia, there's a very clear difference. You have high-emitting products like fiber cement board and formed steel products, and Sequoia generates negative 17 kilos of CO2 per square meter, decarbonizing that application by 150%. But what's more interesting is when it comes to the wall assembly. Walls make up 20% of a building's embodied carbon emissions. It's very significant. So we have one product that we change. You change the steel panel on the outside of a building with Sequoia, and you get incredible decarbonization. So much that you have not just a facade product anymore, you have a new lever for decarbonization in your building product. You can take those negative emissions and you can offset all kinds of other materials in the building project. So this is what material transition looks like. This is a dealership that we built with Audi in Germany. This is right outside Munich. We've replaced aluminum cladding panels with our carbon negative facade panels. This was our very first project. We're very proud of it. We are now operational in Berlin with a pilot facility where we're producing 10,000 square meters a year. We're looking for sustainability-led projects. If you're in real estate and you're looking for a new decarbonization lever, please get in touch with us. We believe the future of building is carbon storage, and we think that we should be transitioning from materials that emit to materials that sink. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ayush, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Ampere Hour Energy. Before we begin, I have a small confession. We love talking about the future. We love talking about AI writing our emails. We love talking about cars that drive themselves. But at the same time, we're trying to build the 2026 sustainable power grid on infrastructure that was built in 1926. When the power grids were being made, they were being made for a certain paradigm. You would have centralized power plants that are very predictable in nature, typically like a thermal or a gas power plant, that would then inject power into a transmission network and then would be distributed. So that would be a single directional flow of power. Your contracts would typically be 20, 25 years, and you would have a very predictable generation of energy. Now, with solar and wind coming in, that entire paradigm has completely moved. You have prosumers, you have bidirectional flow of power, you have real-time markets, and there's a need for active control and energy storage to be embedded within our power networks. Now, this is where we come in. At Ampere Hour, we're not just building big batteries. We give them the smarts. We call it Elena. Elena is an AI-enabled energy management software platform. It's like a smart conductor for a very chaotic and renewable-heavy orchestra that we call our today's grid. We also build the hardware that enables to store an electron at the lowest levelized cost possible. And it's completely hardware agnostic. So in plain English, you can give us a battery that is the best battery available, and we can build out a seamlessly working energy storage system for you. Now, we've been around for about 8 years now, and we have, over the years, done about 100 megawatt hour of energy storage capacity across 10 countries. And we're in the process of doing about 2.5 gigawatt hour of energy storage. And this is for some of the leading power companies in the globe. The largest developers, the largest EPC companies, the largest enterprises, all wanting to add storage to their infrastructure. I want to give you an example of a project that we did in Delhi, which was the first regulatory-approved energy storage project within the distribution network of Delhi. This was a 20 megawatt, 40 megawatt hour energy storage system, was done in collaboration with a developer called IndiGrid and GAP. Now, this project has been live for about 9 months now, and I'm so proud to inform about the results. The system has done about 475 cycles. It has already offset about 13,000 tons of carbon. And what we see now is that you have projects like these happening across the globe. We're now doing a project that's 10 times the size, and we're doing projects through the width and breadth of the globe. We're doing projects in North America to Australia at this particular point in time. Now, what gives me hope is that battery prices have been falling over the last decade, and in my opinion, while you might have some short-term bumps, over the long run, this trend is likely to continue, and you will keep seeing more storage getting added to the power grid. We're a young, ambitious team of engineers with multi-dimensional expertise across battery, software, power systems, power electronics, and we love to work with like-minded companies on the development side, on the EPC side, utilities, wanting to add storage. To conclude, the sun is shining, the battery prices are falling, and you have the smarts available with us. If you are building an energy storage project, we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to partner with you to build out the 21st century power grid. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. A very inspiring round of quick-fire talks here, where our innovators spoke with much passion of how they're trying to use technology or different ways of thinking to build that extra resilience into our infrastructures. Next, we're going to talk about the decarbonization of heavy industry, because when it comes to the green transition, some sectors carry more weight, quite literally. Heavy industry is responsible for a significant share of emissions, but it also holds immense potential for change. So let's explore what acting now really means with Hassan Ghazali. He's urban development expert at AHG Global Project Management Services, and his panel of distinguished guests. Thank you, and please join me in extending a very warm welcome to all of them as they make their way to the stage. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my honor and absolute pleasure to moderate a very important topic. I got a lot of feedback from people yesterday. Are you talking about the cement industry? I think we're going to do better today. And it is a pleasure to introduce to you my panel. I have His Excellency Elnur Sultanov from the Azerbaijan Ministry of Energy. He is also the CEO of COP29, so an architect of global climate policy. I have the honor to introduce His Excellency Abdel Nasser bin Kalban from Emirates Global Aluminium. He's the Chief Executive Officer. To his left, we have His Excellency Ar-Rameati, the Group CEO of M Steel. And finally, we have Mr. Benoit Felix from Banco Santander. So please could I have a round of applause for my distinguished panel. All right, folks, time is short. Perhaps we are standing between you and lunch, so we will get right into it. I'd like to start with you, Your Excellency Ar-Rameati. Heavy industry, particularly steel, is considered to be very difficult to decarbonize. It's difficult, but not impossible. Can you take us through the journey of M Steel and what kind of actions you have taken to decarbonize? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hassan. Really glad to be here, participating in this panel. And the third time, actually, it was the same exact date last year, of course, with my dear friend Abdel Nasser. Despite the fact that we have a lot of similarities between the two industries, except aluminum is so expensive versus steel. I wish, I wish there is one thing that we can say, would really decarbonize the industry, especially the heavy industry. And as I said, it's heavy industries, especially steel, is hard to abate, to really decarbonize. But I believe decarbonization is not really one thing. It's a journey, I would say, and this is where we started. And since the founding of steel, we have considered this. As you would know, the steel traditionally is used coal in the process, and this is where difficulties comes in, and this is where the CO2 emissions are very high. For us, what we have chosen a technology at that time, that was 25 years back, where it's much less emissions than the blast furnaces. And I think this is the start. However, over the years, we have embarked on many journeys and many, I would say, achievements and many initiatives. One of them was in 2017, where we have established with Riyadh today, it's called Riyadh with ADNOC, where the CO2 captured from our plants and injected in oil wheels to really boost up oil. And this is, of course, the only and the first project in the world where the steel industry gives CO2 to the oil and gas. Another one was, a few years back, also we commissioned a pilot where we produce green hydrogen. We call it Green Hydrogen Project. So we did actually produce green hydrogen in our facilities, and we inject it in our own facilities, and we produce pure green steel. And I can tell you today, it's been used in many projects, alhamdulillah, in UAE. We are so proud of this, one of which is we are building a mosque, we call the sustainable mosque with a dar here in UAE. A third one, I would say, we have, alhamdulillah, also achieved 80% of our energy as renewable energy, and this is the blessing we have here in Abu Dhabi, where we have a lot of renewable energy is available for us, and that's really a credit. A third one, I would say, it's also a circular economy, where in the cements we have reduced our emissions, or we are trying to reduce our emissions by introducing slag. So we're using the slag of steel to be injected in the steel industry. That will give us another roughly 20% reduction of the CO2. All of this put us in a really great position as a steel leader in this front. We are so proud of this. I can tell you today, steel is around 40 to 40% average, less in the average of CO2 emissions versus the worldwide.
Excellent, thank you so much. I think that there's a suite of things that one can do. But let's say that perhaps M Steel is very progressive, the tone at the top is right. Let's go to the dark side of all this. Are there any decisions that other leaders of heavy industries are delaying or decisions that they should be taking right now? What's your feel for that? And this is also, feel free to jump in, His Excellency bin Kalban.
I would say very simple is just to put it as priority. Just really go and act in doing so. As I said, it's not really one thing that you will do and then tomorrow you will be decarbonizing your industry. That needs time. And sooner you start is always better. We see a little bit of slowdown of worldwide in terms of decarbonization. But I would believe, yes, just to act fast and get serious and do it.
Excellent, excellent, thank you. And Your Excellency bin Kalban, do you have a point of view on that? What are people delaying?
Well, the only thing really crossed my mind is really the commitment for green metal. Let's not talk about aluminium or steel. This is basically applicable for all the base metals. I mean, the way I see it, if we are really serious about sustainability and reach net zero by 2050 and meet the climate challenge of 1.5 Celsius degree, we need to act now.
Very good.
I'm looking at policymakers, for example, governments. Governments need to make a decision soon regarding the green metal with long-term offtake agreements. Most of this technology is nothing but CapEx intensive, basically. It's very expensive. The return will take very long time. Maturity, I believe, has been mature, has been approved by a lot of engineering firms and a lot of lenders. The problem with this technology did not enjoy the scalability of it, and that's why it wasn't really commercialized.
I get it.
I would like to take you 2011, when in Dubai, we started the journey of solar investment in the Emirates. And smaller project, I was personally involved on it with DEWA and other Dubai entities. We start building 13 megawatt solar, very small, and that was the foundation of Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Solar Park. Very expensive, but we said, let's try it. Let's see how it goes. We have checked it. The delivery was good. It's more than expected efficiency, and from maintainability was excellent. Then we start working with DEWA and also the Energy Council of Dubai that how about if we go ahead and scale it? Then we went ahead with 200 megawatts. Then we said, it's still expensive, so what else the government can do? So we proposed to the government to guarantee the offtake to the agri.
Of course.
So guaranteeing anything guarantees, I'm sure the banks will like it, and they will give you very cheap rate at what they call it, and long duration as well. And I think that journey, whatever we have learned in the solar project, and I'm glad we are talking the Sustainability Week in Abuظbي, and Masdar is the main sponsor here. They can tell you exactly what they are doing there. So I think if we want to decarbonize, I think we need to follow the same path of guaranteeing the offtake, whether it is solar or green aluminum or green metals. I think this is the only missing thing in the equation. The technology providers will like it. We will be happy to invest in decarbonization technology, and of course the bankers will love it. So why we cannot start these journeys, and why we cannot commit for a small green premium for our metal? I'm talking about something as low as 1 to 2%. Last night, the CPI's index in the US was 2.7%. So 1%, it will help everybody throughout the supply chain, to contribute to save this beautiful planet. And I believe if you ask me what's the most single point missing in the equation is this point. But we are doing overall wonderful jobs. If you compare us with our peers in the industry, as my friends here, Mr. Ramethi mentioned, we are also the benchmark for our industry. We are more than 41% lower than the average. And with the new initiatives we have, whether in recycling or whether in importing renewable power from the grid, we will be able to at least decarbonize 50% of our facility here in Abu Dhabi.
Inshallah.
And we'll be saving Abu Dhabi emission at least 3.5 million tons of CO2 only from one initiative per year.
Excellent. That I think that's very positive, and thank you very much for laying out what sort of steps EGA has taken and the benefits. But let's talk about, from your leadership perspective, there are some levers that are discussed a lot, don't deliver so much, some that are perhaps underestimated, can deliver a lot. What are your thoughts on these, Your Excellencies, if you'd like to shed some light on that?
I think some of the technology being discussed so many times is, I'll say, the carbon capture and storage, and also the green hydrogen. I mean, we've been discussing.
Say that's underestimated.
No, I think it's
overestimated. Okay, very good. You heard it here, folks.
We haven't really utilized them to the great extent.
Okay.
For the reason I just mentioned. But the one being underestimated and under-discussed actually is the solar and also the digitalization of our processes.
Of course.
Industry 4.0.
Of course.
It's a lot of low-hanging fruits here. And we really did not push hard on it. I mean, we enjoy the best solar radiation here in the UAE. We still enjoy or held the record for the most cheapest power tariff in the world. I look at the Middle East is basically the hub for green energy, and a lot of things can be done in the solar panels. And in terms of industrialization, I mean, the UAE with our wise leaderships and the heavy investment going for AI and data centers, and we are committed basically for Industry 4.0. I'm glad that my company won an award in Davos last year, and to be a lighthouse for Industry 4.0 here in the UAE. We are the first company, and I'm looking forward to share all the lessons learned for other companies who want to do more.
Mabruk.
So we are committed for these two things, but as I mentioned, the big stuff like green hydrogen and carbon capture, without offtake, guaranteed offtake, nothing will move, and we will be behind in our journey and behind in the commitment for net zero by 2050.
Excellent. And Ms. Al-Ramethi, would you agree with that or beg to differ?
Yeah, definitely. Like, well said. The only thing is, like, speed is also to reach is important. So we need to act now, and then we need to act fast forward. But I fully agree, yes.
Okay, excellent. So now let's turn to you, Benoit. Last year's been very interesting, and I'm not asking you to represent Europe, but give us your point of view. What has changed in Europe? What are your thoughts on that?
Thanks for the question, and very, very keen to be here. Before answering the question, I guess, very quick snapshot on why we are here as representing Santander. Santander is the largest bank in the Eurozone, but most importantly is actually the #1 global bank in financing renewables. And as the title mentioned, the first step of every decarbonization play is actually cheap and abundant green energy. And as you mentioned, a lot of headwinds in 25. I think nobody had imagined the geopolitical movements we'd faced, the change of mindset from one day to another. But on the other side, 25 has been a record year for green energy globally. The number is not set yet, but more or less 800 gigawatts of new capacity has been installed in the world, which is an increase of 10% over 24. So I agree with my colleagues here that the pace of decarb is maybe not the one we were expecting, but it's a reality. The world is going through the electrification, and as you just mentioned, Middle East is actually an amazing hub. You have the resources, you have space, you have industries. So definitely, we clearly see a little more here. What has happened in Europe? Well, basically, to come back to some of the comments here is, I think Europe has been probably too fast in the implementation of the target. So I think we all agree that the 2050 target is there. We all committed to get there. Now the path to get there is actually more difficult than what some politicians or regulators may have felt. And what we've seen this year is actually a reality check in some of the massive plays in Europe that face some problems. I mean, everything we say here is public. You've seen that one of the largest, or supposedly the largest battery manufacturers in Europe went bankrupt in 25. It has sent a very strong and bad signal in the financial markets. A lot of banks, a lot of financial institutions, a lot of public institutions as well were involved in this play. And it has somehow put a lot of pressure on those, I would say, new decarbonization play. And has put the light on a series of issues that my colleague just mentioned. First you need time. It takes time to get from the pilot to the industrial size to the big scale. You need to prove the technology, and you need a lot of skills. It's not the same to build a green steel plant than deploying PV panels on the ground. So I think we have suddenly, I guess, realized that a lot of decarb plays were very good ideas, but they needed a lot of elements to be actually actionable.
Okay. So Benoit, on that, if I may, because I'm conscious of time, we had some very encouraging comments at the IRENA General Assembly from the Director General. But from your perspective, from a bank's perspective, what does the financing look like for 2026? Will it flow freely?
No, I think very positive, because once again, we will add more and more renewables, and this is a trend that will stay forever. And I guess people start to realize that we need offtake. Okay. So we've been, looking at the stick regulations for many years. Now we need to look at the market, at the carrot. Okay. So we need people to pay the slight 2% premium. I know that.
Excellent. So,
but once you get the offtake, I think the rest will flow without anything.
The secret word.
Okay. Yeah. So from Europe, I mean, I think a carrot, a stick. We've gotten a great gift. The carbon border adjustment mechanism has landed on everyone, getting enforced from the beginning of this year. So my question to you, Your Excellency El Noor, is how do you see CBAM operating? Has it changed the way you look at things in Azerbaijan? And I'm asking you to have your Energy Deputy Minister hat on right now.
Thank you for the question. So I'm with the best available science here. So I believe that curbing greenhouse gas emissions really matters, that we should be targeting 2050 as net zero, and I think we should should be still targeting 1.5. It's reversible. So therefore, any move actually that helps in this regard, I'm kind of emotionally supportive of that move, and therefore CBAM for me is something of this kind. But at the same time, according to the letter and spirit of UNFCCC and Paris Agreement, probably the second most celebrated phrase is common but differentiated responsibilities, right? So we should be targeting net zero by 2050, but we shouldn't be forgetting this developing and developed country, I don't want to say divide, but grouping, right? The entire agreement was based upon that. So therefore, what we are seeing here, again, without forgetting my emotional and rational, in fact, support for any move that takes us to net zero, at the same time, now we have a group of countries that basically exported these greenhouse gas emissions to the rest of the world, to the developing world, and benefited as a result of it with their economic development. And now they are exporting the cost of mitigation back to the developing world, right? So this is double export. And I think this is what we mean by common and but differentiated responsibilities. So, and back to the speaker before me, I think CBAM will be effective insofar as anything that is gathered, collected as a result of this is really rechanneled back to support especially developing world in terms of those activities mitigation, because these are very expensive actions, capital expenses, human resource expenses. In Azerbaijan, We calculated, although we are closest to European Union among all those three big trade blocs or countries in the world, our exports, we are talking about around 1% of exports that will be subject to CBAM. But at the same time, so at the macro level, it's not important. But at corporate level, there are certain corporations that they are hard-pressed because as a developing country, you don't have the same access to finances. You don't have the same access to technology. You don't have the same access to human resources, right? So your basically cost is much more than what would be facing any corporation in the developed world. So in that sense, to me, once again, the importance will be how we are, again, carrot and stick-wise. Any carrot, any income that is being gathered should be really channeled towards encouraging those corporations in the developing world. And last, I think we discussed with you before the session, really in Azerbaijan, our strategy is to make sure that we don't pay that difference in the border with the EU, but we make sure that any expenses, any additional value added happens within the borders of Azerbaijan.
Excellent.
So that it creates some kind of circularity and helps the economy.
And on that, I'll turn, I think this is going to be my final question because I'm conscious of time, so to both His Excellency bin Kalban and His Excellency Al-Ramethi, how are you seeing CBAM being major exporters from the UAE?
Well, from my side, CBAM is nothing but another tax mechanism similar to 50% duty in America. People will pay the taxes. By the way, most of the duty and the taxes will be borne by the end user.
Of course.
All right. So who will decarbonize? I mean, instead of, let's say, applying a tax, as I mentioned, if you give me an offtake agreement for 10, 15 years, with small premium, it will encourage me to decarbonize with much faster rate, with much better financing rate, and everybody will win. This is a contribution by everybody, and I think they need to change to this strategy. CBAM, even the European producer, they're not happy about it. So I don't know what they are solving for. And by the way, because now CBAM only counting for scope 1 of the aluminum emissions, which is only the smelting facility, our emission lower than their threshold. So in a matter of fact, they need to pay us a credit, not a penalty. So it's not working. So I believe they need to think about it, and it will stay scope 1 for another 5 years. So my humble opinion say nobody will decarbonize at the speed we want.
Interesting.
And without having guaranteed offtake for a green metal, just not going to work.
Excellent. And Your Excellency Al-Ramethi, your point of view on that?
In terms of time, I can't really comment on that. Maybe some people, they think it's too early, like, you know. But overall, in the long run, I would say, like, you know, I mean, it's still it just started this year, so we don't really know exactly what the impact of. But I would say in the long run, with CBAM will come better measurement of carbon. That's one thing. I think that's really good. And the second thing, which is I think is more important, is to reward, like, you know, companies or rewards whom did really decarbonization in a real way. And that for us being a little bit selfish, like, you know, that's a really good opportunity for us. Having, like, you know, in mind we are low emissioner versus the others. Today we sell in Europe, for example, we see, like, you know, the interest in terms of demand in our low carbon, I would say, products or sustainable products, and that yet to really be increased. That's in the long run, that's what I think. So for us, it's an opportunity. So we have a really good base, like, you know, to really benefit out of that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, that's all the time we have today, folks. More conversations to be had throughout ADSW. Please give a warm round of applause to my distinguished panel for their points of view, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very good.
Many thanks to all of you. Many thanks to you, Hassan, for moderating this conversation, an important conversation on how to decarbonize heavy industry. And many thanks to our expert guests here, of course. Our next segment is a celebration. I'm sure you'd all agree that innovation deserves recognition, especially when that innovation reshapes food systems, resilience, and nutrition. So our next segment here is the UAE's Food Tech Challenge, a $2 million global competition that identifies and scales promising food tech and ag tech solutions in arid and climate-stressed environments. And to find out more, I would like to invite to the stage Rima Al-Mokarab, co-chair of the Food Tech Challenge, under a very warm round of applause, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be back at Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week. Wonderful to see so many familiar faces. And I have to thank Sustainability Week for welcoming UAE's Food Tech Challenge to this incredible platform for progress. As you all know very well, the need for innovation in food systems has never been greater. And of course, that's not unique to UAE. A growing global population needs secure access to food. Climate change is reshaping how that food can be produced, and gaps in the supply chain mean that too much of what we produce is lost. And as more countries face similar challenges, we are committed to innovation that benefits all, particularly in the global south, where we live, which bears the brunt of climate change. The UAE Food Tech Challenge is a $2 million global competition to support pioneering startups working to build more resilient food systems. In 2024, on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, we launched our third competition. We received over 1,200 submissions from 113 countries. These applicants went through 3 rounds of rigorous judging by a panel of global experts. In September, we announced the top 10 finalists who offer exciting breakthroughs to produce more food with fewer natural resources. Since then, the finalists have met our global and local partners, developed plans for how to use their share of the prize, and will help reshape our food systems. Today, it is my privilege to introduce you to our 10 remarkable finalists before we announce our 4 winners.
In the category of food production, from the United Kingdom, Permia Sensing. Permia Sensing pioneers the use of bioacoustic sensors and drone imaging to monitor palm farms and detect deadly pests like the red palm weevil, boosting yields and supporting more sustainable palm agriculture. From the United Arab Emirates, HiveGeo. HiveGeo transforms agricultural waste into biochar to create an all-natural forever fertilizer that sequesters carbon, improving soil health, reducing the need for irrigation and addressing greenhouse gas emissions. From Egypt, Pevita. Pevita converts palm waste into beta-carotene and pectin to create high-value ingredients for food, pharmaceuticals, and cosmetics, replacing synthetics, driving circular production, and turning waste into profits. From the United Arab Emirates, Homeport. Homeport infuses irrigation and potable water with nanobubbles to maximize oxygenation and nutrient uptake, increasing crop yields and livestock growth for more efficient food systems. From Malaysia, Seedling. Seedling harnesses the power of seaweed fermentation to create natural biostimulants that can boost plant and animal vitality, offering a climate-resilient solution for healthier growth, higher yields, and stress-tolerant crops. In the category of food loss and waste. From the United Kingdom, Flybox. Flybox offers a climate-controlled, off-grid, and modular solution to produce animal feed and fertilizer from waste, making insect waste management systems more efficient, affordable, and accessible. From the United States, Acorn Technology. Acorn is an all-natural coating made from waxes, oils, and plant proteins to slow ripening and reduce moisture loss of fresh produce after harvest, extending shelf life and cutting food loss through the supply chain. From France, Jaboo. Jabu is an AI-powered software platform arming commercial kitchens with data to better forecast demand and dynamically distribute excess food, reducing food waste and protecting profitability. From the United States, the Hungry app. The Hungry app is a dynamic digital platform connecting homes and restaurants to redistribute excess edible food in real time, reducing food waste and strengthening community ties. From Kenya, Eco-Rich Solutions. Eco-Rich has developed a modular, off-grid, and AI-powered waste bot to rapidly create fertilizer at the point of waste, decentralizing production, replacing synthetic alternatives, and cutting costs for farmers.
To help me congratulate the 4 winners, I'd like to invite our distinguished panel of judges and our incredible partners up to the stage.
And now, the moment the finalists have been waiting for. In the category of food production, the winner is Premier Sensing.
Our service is based on image, acoustics, and AI. Our bioacoustic sensor allows the farmer to listen to the trees and early detect pests like the red palm weevil, but also stress related to hydration. We cover 15,000 hectares of coconut and palm oil plantations in Sri Lanka. Our next step is to go to the Middle East, when we can solve the issue with the red palm weevil and bring innovation to agriculture and the economy of the Emirates. The Food Tech Challenge prize is for us to set our base in Abu Dhabi, a base that will serve the other countries of the MENA region. It's also access to stakeholders, to research institutes, to governments, to universities, so we can bring the best talent from the country to help us to take our technology further and localize it for the most benefit to the MENA region.
And our second winner of the food production category is Hive Geo.
One bold claim that we can make is that we can transform desert from liabilities to national assets by cutting water use, producing food, and storing carbon at scale. We are solving food security and climate changes here in the United Arab Emirates and in arid regions. We do that by restoring soil, conserving water, and removing CO2 at the same time. We produce highly engineered biochar designed specifically for desert sand across the United Arab Emirates and the wider global south. It is inoculated with microbial blends and nutrients, accelerating soil creation from 7 years down to 1 month. We call it Hive Soil. Food security in the desert is a national issue. We've seen firsthand how our land is becoming hotter and harder to farm. But we believe that planting seeds today is important so our future descendants can sit in the shade tomorrow. This is not just for us, it's for future generations who deserve food security, a greener land, and a livable planet.
And now, in the category of food loss and waste, the winner is Acorn Technology.
The problem we're trying to solve is that of waste of fresh fruits and vegetables in the supply chain. Most estimates put that waste figure in the 30, 40, sometimes up to 50% of the total harvested product. In order to succeed in the global south, you need to be able to address the specific needs, which means the products you offer, they need to be low cost, they need to be easy to use, and they need to be effective. And that's what we've been able to do. Our solution is totally natural and targets directly waste of fresh fruits and vegetables. What we do is we develop completely natural coatings that are applied on the surface of fruits and vegetables and reduce rate of waste, meaning they preserve fruits and vegetables, they last longer, and they are delivered to their final destination at a much higher quality. Core building block of our product is a protein we extract from non-GMO corn. This protein has been known for over 100 years, but it's never been functionalized in a way that can become cost-effective and useful in the...
And our final winner of the Food Tech Challenge in the category of food loss and waste is Flybox.
The boldest claim I can make about Flybox is it's the only circular solution to organic waste. There's simply no other solution that can claim to take food and take it back to food, because it's for the first time a truly circular solution. So food waste actually becomes food once again via insects and their fertilizer. And so that's fundamentally why we prefer it. It's zero waste, and it also happens to be 50% less CO2 emitted per every ton of food waste. I think Flybox's solution is really well suited to the arid parts of the world and the global south, because it's low infrastructure, it works off-grid, requires a lot less engineering and entomology know-how because we manufacture them and put them on site, and they're basically turnkey. So the Food Tech Challenge prize money, if we're successful, is going to go into two main camps. One is our polytunnel range with a potential customer actually that we've identified in Kenya, and the other one would be a waste management partnership with a university that we've already been working with in the UAE to do the first containerized site in the UAE. So it should hopefully be a game changer in both those markets.
Congratulations once again for all our Food Tech Challenge winners. And as they pose for a group photo, please join us in congratulating these outstanding startups who have been chosen from over 1,200 global applications. We wish the very best of luck to all of them as they scale their solutions from the UAE to the rest of the world in service of a more sustainable and secure global food system. And now, ladies and gentlemen, a short interlude. Please do remain seated for the rest of our very exciting program, where we will welcome several heads of state from some inspiring conversations around leadership, energy, leadership, and partnership. So do stay with us. We'll reconvene very shortly. Thank you.